Welcome back. My name is Guy, and as you can see, my Greene and Greene wall clock is finished, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, I'll leave a link in the corner for you to take a look at later and catch up. This time I'm going to pre-finish all the parts and do the final assembly of the clock. I've also made a complete set of plans along with a cut list and material guide, and I'll leave a link in the description down below on where you can download those from. Let's get started. Well, I've done all the surface prep on the pieces. I've sanded to 320 grit. If there's any dings or dents, I steamed them out. I'm going to be pre-finishing this piece. There's so many different layers and inside the cabinet and such. I don't really want to have to deal with it after it's assembled. So I'm going to be putting a water-based dye on here. So the first thing I need to do is I need to wet all these surfaces, raise the grain, and then sand it back with 400 grit sandpaper. Well, here's a sample piece I ran for the finish, and this side has a shellac and wax finish on it, and this is just stained with nothing on top of it. So this is the look I'm looking for, and what I've got is I've got some general finishes, water-based dye stain. I've got orange and medium brown. I've mixed it up. I've mixed 7 parts orange to 4 parts medium brown, and I'm just going to apply this with a rag, and then, got a little bit on my finger there, apply this with the rag. Let it sit for a few minutes, wipe off the excess, scuff sand it back, and then I'll probably put a second coat on it. Well, the first coat dried, and then I scuff sanded with 400, like I said. And I put a second coat on. I didn't know if I was going to put a second coat on it, but the second coat really made a big difference. I've got this real rich looking reddish brown color. I've also got my sample board here, and this side is a blonde shellac, this side is armor seal satin, and then both sides have a coat of brown paste wax on it that's been buffed off. I kind of like the color of this a little bit better than this, so that's what I'm going to go with. But before I start putting any more finish on these pieces, I need to start installing all the ebony bars and plugs that go in here. We're going to start putting some of these ebony plugs in, and all I'm going to do is take some glue. Got some glue here, and put on a toothpick. And that's how far the depth I want it to be. I just want the pillowed edges to meet the outside of that, and that's a really nice look. I've got all the pieces prepped for the finish, and I put a lot of blue tape on areas I know where there's going to be glue. If I get any finish on areas where there will be some glue, it's not a big deal. I can sand that back. I mentioned before I'm going to be using General Finishes Armor Seal. I've transferred it to a little squirt bottle, and I'm just going to apply it with a paper towel. There's really not a lot of magic to this. I'm just going to wipe it on, not a real super heavy coat, but not a light coat either, and then let it sit for a little bit, wipe it back, and then let it dry for 24 hours. I've got the first coat of wipe-on poly on, and I'm really glad I used the wipe-on poly instead of the shellac. The color just came out perfect, and it really accentuates the black plugs and the bars and things. So I've got to let this sit overnight, and I'm going to put one more coat on here, and that's probably all I'm going to put on this. Well, the finish is completely dried. I end up putting 2 coats of armor seal on here. This piece isn't going to see a lot of use. That's going to require a ton of protection, so that's more than enough. Now I'm just getting ready to do the glue up. I'm going to do the case sides first, let those sit for about an hour, and then glue up the rest of the case. Now I'm going to hold the top on with figure 8s, and I've got to actually put the top on now because otherwise I'll never be able to get the screwdriver in underneath to get it done. So, well, if you've never seen these before, all it is a piece of metal. It's in the shape of a figure 8, and I'm going to put them in there like that. And what that's going to do, it's going to tie in the top to the front, and also at the back. It'll keep it flat to the sides, but it'll also allow it to move towards the back. I'm getting ready to put the middle divider in, and before I do that, I need to make sure I put the clock face in there. Now I've also pre-finished the clock face. I put some boiled linseed oil and then 2 coats of an amber shellac, and it's really nice and smooth. But I need to put this in here now because if I don't, I won't be able to get it in after I put that middle shelf in. So I'm just going to set it in there right now. Leave it about right there. Now glue wise, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on that front divider to hold it in. So I have those clamps in place now, and they're holding the shelf up to the front. I didn't film this because I forgot to hit the damn record button, but basically the clock face is held in place up on top to the front rail with some glue, and then there's a glue block down here holding it in place. And these are just some spacers to keep the spacing even. After this dries for about 40 minutes or so, I'll take those glue blocks out, and that clock face should be secure. Well, now I've got that all set up. This should just slide right in from the front. And it's just going to be that easy, I think. Oh, yep. Nice. Well, there's the glue up of the main case, and I'm going to let that sit overnight, and tomorrow I'll start working on the door. I've got the mortises for the hinges cut. I'm actually going to glue this door in place. Now I'm not going to glue the non-hinged style, mainly because I want to do all the finishing, get the door put together, get it sized, and then put the glass in, and then attach the other rail to it. Now to close these joints up, I've got some shim stock that I'm just going to insert right there. Make sure these are all the way up. And all my joints here and here are nice and tight, and that's really what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that this is flat to the front of this also, which it is. So I'm just going to let this cook in here for probably 3 or 4 hours before I mess with it again, and that glue will have plenty of time to set up over here. Well, I've got the hinges installed, and I knew this was going to happen. It's a little bit too big because of the swing of the door and where this edge is. So right now I've got a real nice even gap all the way back here. This ruler is a little bit better than a 32nd of an inch. It's 5 1/28. I'm not going to go down to 1/28. But what I need to do first is I'm going to take this over the table saw, and I'm going to rip a 32nd of an inch off the edge of this and see if I can get this to close right. Alright, so that closes real nice, and I've got that same gap on this side that I do on the other side. So I can take this over. I'm not going to glue it up quite yet, but I need to round over these edges and the edges on the inside of this rail here. So at the table saw, I shaved off a 32nd off the top and a 32nd off the bottom, and what I'm left with is a real nice 32nd of an inch gap going all the way around the door. So the rest of the door pieces have to go through the same finishing process that I did for the front, but still, this is not glued on yet, as I've got to put the glass in there before I do the glue up. I've got the finish on the door parts. I've also installed the ebony plugs just like I did the rest of the case, and I'm getting ready to install the glass that's going to go in here. Now the glass is going to be encapsulated inside of here, but I am going to use hide glue, In case the door does ever break, the glass does break, I will be able to put some water on here, heat this up, and separate this part from the rest of the frame. So let's get to it. And since this door has already been sized, it's very important that the top and bottom rails and the posts are perfectly flush on the sides. I put some clamps on here. They're light duty clamps, and I've just got enough pressure to keep the joint closed. I want to make sure that this stays flat and the top and bottom are flush with the post.